Good afternoon. I'm Selectman Sean Askham, and I'm joined here by my colleagues, Selectman Cheryl Cook and Selectman Mike Payne. Unfortunately, Deputy First Selectman Nancy Hasse had work engagements this afternoon, so she wasn't able to join us. But I think we can fill the time.
We'll try our best.
We'll certainly miss her. But lots has been going on in town over the last couple of weeks since we last spoke with you. We're right about to start the budget process. We've had an excellent senior center public hearing recently. We've got some more some public hearings coming up. Lots of big decisions, lots of events, lots of good discussions coming up in town. So
looking forward to it.
yeah, it should be good. So what were your thoughts first off on the senior center public hearing the other night, Cheryl?
Well, first, I think it's great, everybody who came out. We had a good crowd, and we had a lot of different opinions. There are some people who came out who we have seen before and are very well informed, and it's always great to hear the people who have been following the process throughout, and they have a really good understanding of where we've been and where we need to go to make this happen. And I think the board is very committed at this point to making a decision and trying to move ahead with this project. I very much appreciated some of the residents who came out with specific recommendations.
Right.
We heard some recommendations regarding parking and the safety of seniors in particular in parking, which I thought was very interesting.
Yep. Yeah, in terms of the flow and
Yeah,
the
flow.
angling of the
Exactly.
spaces and the consultants that are involved. It's a
Where you go in and out, all sorts of things. And it's very important we take that into consideration. I think, while we're thinking about Eno and, we've all used Eno for a variety of reasons, and we all love this building, and it's a town treasure.
yeah, absolutely.
And unfortunately, it's showing its age, and it needs some improvements. The main improvement that I see is accessibility.
Right.
I think that on the Aging and Disability Commission, we have some very dedicated volunteers who have made it their mission to improve accessibility in town buildings, and this building is a big focus of those efforts.
Right.
And I think we have to honor all their hard work and make this building accessible. So.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's the challenge that we heard the other night is whether we do the senior center in this building we're in now, or we don't, we still need to address the accessibility issues
Absolutely.
here. And I'm not sure everybody's always thought about it like that. We have an obligation, especially with town offices and other events here, to make it ADA compliant. The ramp is obviously a challenge in the winter.
Yep.
The elevator's challenging. The floors are not exactly friendly for folks with mobility challenges. So it's got a lot of work to do.
Well, and we have a lot of critical services housed in this building,
Right.
like social services
Right.
and the current senior center.
Right.
We hold public meetings here. We have special events,
Right.
the Simsbury Light Opera, the Theater Guild,
Right.
all of those really great groups that we have in town who use this building, and we have to make it so that everybody is able to enjoy it.
I agree. So, Mike, we had about 19 speakers the other night. Anything really stuck out to you from that?
Again, the people that came prepared, I found the discussion of the parking, I hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about that,
Right.
other than we need the space for the parking and enough parking for people to use the facility, wherever it is. But the angled parking and all of that and the room to turn around, I just hadn't gone into that, drilled down to that level of detail. And I thought that was really good. And then some discussion about all the different services, and there are some services, if you will, for the senior center or community center, however you want to talk about it, that are not done here and are done elsewhere. And I think that speaks to the breadth of the town and the interest and the intermingling of everybody. I think it's part what makes it special, and I think of Eno as a grand old gal that we've got to take care of, and we need to make it, to your point with aging and disability, accessible to everybody that we possibly can. And it was really built more as a gift to the town before any of that stuff was even thought of. And it's going to be a challenge, but I think we need to seriously look at how to make it accessible to all.
Right.
The other feature I found really interesting to hear about, and I was so glad we had the architect there to go over the plans in detail with us, was the drop-off zone.
Right.
You know,
That's critical.
Yeah.
the covered doorway that's high enough for dial-a-ride vans and other type of handicap vehicles, and just folks in their cars, you know, who would like a covered space to get in and out of the building.
Yeah.
You know, I have sat here many an afternoon and watched people sitting outside in the rain and the snow and waiting for their ride, and it's a shame that,
Yep.
you know, we can't do something about that, so.
Right. And that's, you know, that brings up the topic of need, and that's obviously high on the list of needs. You know, the big part of what the senior center does, obviously, is the luncheons that they provide here. And that's, I mean, it's a great social event, but it's also a big necessity of what the senior center provides for folks in town. And it's, you know, the facility is just not adequate with the kitchen space. The food is actually have to be brought in. So that's,
That's
you know,
right.
for me, we've kind of switched from talking about buildings and sites and, you know, big picture stuff to getting more into the what's really the need of it. And, do, you know, do we need, you know, additional exercise rooms? Do we need kitchen facilities? Obviously, those, you know, those are high on the list. Do we need, you know, activity rooms? You know, because it's not just an issue of space and square footage. It's just, you know, what are you going to do with that? And again, for some folks, it's, we'll just do it at Eno. Well, it's, as we heard and we know, it's just not that simple. This building, you know, has square footage, but it doesn't because of,
Right.
you know, the historical challenges. And well, do you slap up a new building? And okay, what happens? What becomes of Eno? And then is the building downtown? Is it not downtown?
Well, and if you do a new building, how big a building
How
do you
big
need?
build? Do you need 22,000 or
That's
do you
right.
only need 15,000?
And,
Or-
you know, now that we've had, you know, to your point, Mike, when we had all those people come in and say, you know, we have a lot of services that the senior center coordinates that
Right.
don't necessarily happen
Here.
at the senior center.
Right.
Stuff happens at the library, stuff
Right, they're
happens
doing
at the
tax
farm.
preparation
That's
coming up,
right.
right?
You know,
Coming
we
to the
heard
library.
about the AARP volunteer tax program, which is going on now, which is a wonderful service. But
Yep.
but again, you know, we're using the library for those things, as we should.
Absolutely.
So I think, you know, as a board of selectmen, we need to look at our big picture assets here. You know, we have to look at how we can spread out those services so that we're not overbuilding
Yeah.
for services that are already taking place on another location. So-
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's interesting to work on that balance so that, you know, it's not all or nothing. And I don't think anyone's falling down on either side of that issue. It's really looking for a balance and a way to do it, and a way that's fair to everybody in town, because ultimately we're all paying for it. And I really challenge myself to try to find that balance.
I agree.
But it was some great comments, some very interesting things that, like the parking that I mentioned. I didn't even think of that, the angled parking, how
Right.
much easier it is. And I've been to places that had angled parking. It was way easier to get around.
Right.
And you don't find
And you probably never considered that.
didn't even consider it, and it's much easier to get in and out of. And you don't seem to find that people are parking so close to you, you can't get out of your car.
Right.
It's a whole different
so,
setup for it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, you know, and then we have a couple other unique issues that kind of get intertwined in this as we talk about site selection. We've got the concept of not just a senior center, but a community center.
Right.
If we bring the PAC, you know, the PAC facility into play, which is something that, you know, we started to talk about again, and we were talking about last summer with different designs and different options. Is can there be some sort of shared space there where we're getting 2 for 1?
Right.
You know, because that's a beautiful facility that has a second and a third phase visioned. And, you know, can we make that come true with green rooms that double as exercise rooms and music rooms that can be used by both seniors and kids
Right.
and other folks in the community? You know, that's something that's really interesting to me. And then obviously we've got the relatively new topic of the DOT site, the parking lot that we've all
Right.
started to talk about. And while that might seem like a you know, a home run for some folks, there's significant economic development concerns and questions that we've got to answer and to think through as a
Right.
board, right, before we make that decision. Because if
Well-
we take that much, you know, acreage off the tax rolls for the future, what you know, what
Right.
implications does that mean, you know?
Well,
So
I
it's a-
thought it was great that we had our town planner come in,
Yep.
Mr. Peck, and, you know, a couple of other people from Main Street Partnership
Right.
and Chamber who discussed the economic development impact of whatever we do,
Right.
renovation or new building. And I think, you know, given the town's history with the development downtown and the Charrette and the Main Street corridor and the whole, you know, we've spent a lot of community time developing that vision, and we have to keep that in mind
Absolutely.
when we're thinking of this plan.
Absolutely.
Well, and I find it interesting, the investment of all that time in the charrette and everything else. You know, here it is, 8 years later, I think,
Yeah, come on from that, I believe.
that many of those ideas still haven't completely percolated up, but the ideas are still sound, and the concept is still there. And like anything, it's a long-term plan. It's not
Right.
something that, you know, in 6 months is okay, we're done, on to our next thing. It is really changing the way the downtown is laid out and set up. And I think ultimately, there's a lot of good stuff there. And it is exciting to do that. And we're very fortunate we have some challenge, some opportunities, excuse me. And with those opportunities do come challenges.
Yep.
Right.
But it's good to have those challenges and be able to look at different opportunities and ways to accomplish the goal.
Well, and I think we're fortunate to have residents who care enough to become informed about the big picture issues. You know, how does parking affect our downtown businesses? You know,
Yep.
how does removing parking, you know, from contention affect, you know, say the PAC events or anything else that happens in the downtown? You know, we have to work as a community to put this project together, and that includes, you know, our local businesses and our seniors and
Yeah.
and our performing arts community to make this all work together. So it's a
Absolutely.
challenge, but
It is.
We had the women's club who came up,
Right.
and I hadn't even thought of
All
the
the-
events,
that's
arts
right.
and crafts
The
event.
craft
And I
festival.
apologize, ladies, my bad. But
Think about it now.
now I do, and it's a different spin on the parking issue. But then, well, they can't use it. If we use that lot, then it's not available for parking during the Talcott Mountain Music Fest, which is a true, you know, another gem of the town that I actually had a lunch with somebody that lives up in North Canaan who came down for one of the concerts last summer, and it was like, oh my God, this is wonderful.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Yeah, we've got a lot of great things in this town.
we really do. Very
So
fortunate.
we've got certainly not one more, not the last, but we've got another discussion on this at our next Board of Selectmen meeting, March 9th, correct?
right?
Where we're going to be talking about this. We've got additional questions into town staff to make sure that we're looking at different sites, square footage, et cetera. And as we move down the road of site selection, as we move down the road of really kind of firming up what is going to happen next, and that's going to start to really start to gel coming up, and then
Right.
obviously with the budget process, which we'll move to next for our discussion.
But that sort of segues us right into the budget discussion,
Right.
because, you know, if we're going to put a number, you know, on how much as a community we're willing to invest in a senior/community center, we have to put that in the plan.
Yep.
And we have to start planning for financing it and
Right.
how we're going to pay for it. So,
Absolutely.
and that has to happen soon.
Absolutely.
It's,
Yeah, and that's it's something we've been talking about for years on the Board of Selectmen and other commissions when we've been on there, because many boards get a crack at the
That's right.
capital improvement plan, but we've had a placeholder, as we call it, for years, because it's not the actual year that it's financed in, and now that placeholder moves to a decision point, and the number evolves due to construction costs and needs
Right.
and site selection and others, but it's it's been anywhere from $5 million, I think, to upwards of $8 million.
that's right.
And that's a significant amount of capital to invest.
It is.
In any single or multiple facilities, and one that we obviously don't take lightly.
Right.
And we're going to make a good decision on. I have confidence in that with the way the six of us are all thinking about it. But that'll be one of the bigger components of what we do from the capital side.
Right. And then the Board of Finance also gets a say in this, and then
Absolutely.
ultimately the voters.
Right.
And again, we can never say it enough this time of year, but become informed and participate in the process,
Right.
because you don't want the ballot and the referendum to be the first time you've seen
What's going on?
these numbers, and it's
Yeah.
it's incumbent upon all of us to become educated
Absolutely.
about what's going on. So we should encourage that.
And the senior center project, and no matter what we move forward, I'm 99% sure, unless we do a $700,000 project, we'll meet the threshold to be a line item on the referendum. So,
Oh, yeah,
you know, a
absolutely.
lot of the discussion that we had, a lot of suggestions that we had the other night at the public hearing was, well, put it to the voters. Well,
Exactly.
we can't just put a question out there. That's you know, we've other board of selectmen in the past have explored that. But what we can do again is make the best decision we think possible, and then send it to the voters for an up or down on
That's right.
the expenditure side.
Yeah.
So folks very much do have a say, and they can disagree with the funds, they can disagree with the site, they can disagree with it, or they can agree with it for whatever reason they want to.
Right.
But they certainly get an opportunity to have their say. So I'm looking forward to that.
And that's the beauty of this process, in my opinion, is it's both involved at all the budget hearings through the Board of Selectmen. Ultimately, we make a decision, we refer it to the Board of Finance.
Yep.
They get another look at it there, and then ultimately it goes to the voters.
Right.
And gives everybody, in my opinion, a lot of time to be involved, to get informed, and to look at the information. So,
Right.
you know, it's not just, geez, I went in and there's this item here. What's this for?
Right.
And I agree with you. I think it should be. My hope is that it's going to be a separate line item
I
on
believe it
the
will be. Yeah, based on town charter.
town charter. Yeah.
So we should be in good shape there. So the first selectman, I believe, is probably in her office right now, hard at work, finishing up the budget. She's going to give that to us on Thursday,
Thursday.
right? We've got a
Right.
meeting. So that'll be the 5 selectmen. We'll get our first chance at seeing what the first selectman's budget for the town is.
That's right.
And
That'll
again,
be
that's
this week, yeah.
you know, that's the town side. You know, that's public works, that's police, that's the first selectman's office, planning, engineering.
Everybody in town hall.
So all the town hall, you know, roughly
Culture,
18,
Park and
19
Rec.
million dollars,
Right.
you know, when you look at it. And then the Board of Ed has already obviously put theirs together, and I believe
Yep.
the superintendent has shared that number. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll look at our piece. We've got hearings, but starting Thursday, right? 26th?
Thursday will be the first selectman's presentation
Presentation.
Right.
to the Board of Selectmen for her budget. I don't know how much, actual discussion we're going to have about that at
opportunity
that
if people
point.
wanna
but
come and hear about it,
it's,
but,
but certainly an opportunity to come and hear what it says. We start our hearings in earnest next week, a week from Thursday, March 5th, I
Right.
believe, is our first
think you're
budget
right.
workshop.
Correct.
And certainly, we encourage the public to attend as all or as many as you can take.
Right, and that's
It's,
that's really the time, and it's a far more informal setting than a typical Board of Selectmen meeting. It's we're usually at the library or in the program room there, and unfortunately, very few people show up. But it's a great opportunity to hear the budget in real time because that's when we're hearing about it and the needs of town staff, the needs of
Right.
departments, where the pressures are, where things are growing, and then we ask questions. There's always public audience.
Yeah.
And that first meeting, I think we're doing 3 or 4 major departments,
Yes.
and then
And then Saturday, March 7th,
yeah,
I believe we go all day.
all day.
All day.
8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
So bring coffee and soda for the afternoon.
Feel free to bring your selectmen some coffee.
I think we will probably have something, but that's where we'll do the bulk of the budget, right?
Right, that's,
And then we've got the 9th, where we're going to talk about capital. I believe that's slated for that evening
Yeah.
as well, which is
believe.
before the.
no, I think that got moved into the CIP and the.
Did it get moved to the
CMP.
7th?
It
Okay.
got moved into the 7th
It's a
because of
fluid
our
process.
public hearings.
That's absolutely right.
That's
It's
right.
a very fluid process. So the good
Uh-huh.
news is, and I commend the first selectman, Lisa, for doing this. She puts all of this up on the website. The budget dates are actually up there. So if you go to the Simsbury town website, right in the front section is
Right.
you can click on the budget, and those dates will be up there. As soon as she releases the budget to us, she stated to us last night that she's going to be providing an entire copy of the budget
Right.
there. I know from working with Lisa in the past, she's very much about transparency and
Absolutely.
providing as much information out there to the public as possible. And I certainly appreciate that because it's great to have a transparent process and everybody gets to ask a lot of questions and understand
Well,
where
and,
their tax
and that's
dollars
the
are
best
going.
part of those workshops,
Right.
is
Oh.
that you get to actually hear the town staff explain the numbers.
do they- what do they do with the
It's
money?
not just
Yeah.
a number on a page. Public Works needs, this many thousands of dollars for this piece of equipment. But
Right.
you will have Tom Roy standing there explaining, what this piece of equipment does, why they need it, how often
Why-
they use it.
why do we
what-
need it now, you
That's
know?
right. Why
Yeah.
do we need it now?
Right.
How much does it cost to fix it? All those things that,
It was last night. I found that intriguing. His little graph over all the snowstorms this year,
Right.
and what the time that he spent plowing with his people and then the amount of salt they put down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one storm, I believe it was Martin Luther King Day,
Yes.
was far and away the biggest number of hours for staff to plow
Mm-hmm.
and also salt to put down because it was such an extended period and because of the
ice.
temperature, the ice and everything.
Right.
So it's interesting to see those kind of details, and it's good so you understand the process
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
as opposed to, well, they never come down my road or this or
Right.
that, or they're always out just the road's clean and they're putting stuff down. I mean,
I can personally attest in the last half hour to how good we have it with our public works
That's
department.
right.
there you go.
You know, there are lanes in Hartford that have yet to be plowed still from weeks
Yeah.
ago, and every single road is scraped dry and clean in this town, and we're very lucky. And sometimes they're a little delayed getting out there, but there's usually a method to that madness. Tom is on top of
Right.
safety first and foremost. I know he coordinates with the police department to make
Yeah,
sure
we
that
are so fortunate with
And
him.
the schools and everybody,
schools,
they
and
do a
it's-
great job. They
quite the
really
operation.
do.
We're
Oh.
very lucky. So so we've got a lot with the budget. So again,
Right.
the biggest thing is please come out and give us your input. Please come out and tell us what you think. Because the most frustrating thing I can tell you is from being on the Board of Selectmen for the last 3 years is after the referendum or when the time is passed to make changes or to get things into the budget or to ask questions that weren't
Right.
thought of, it's too late. So now is the time to do that. Please find a way to get to us. Call us, email us.
Right. And if we
Stop
don't
us
know,
in Fitzgerald's, wherever it makes sense.
And if we don't know the answer, we're going to have
We'll
all
get it
those
for you.
department heads coming to talk to us. We
We'll get
will
it for
find
you.
out for
We
you.
have the
So-
experts there.
So we've got a couple of big public hearings coming up. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
we've got 3. So we've got one on March 9th, right? And you and I and personnel have set that up with Chris Kelly.
Yes, that will be a public discussion of the first selectman's salary.
Yep.
This will be a follow-up to the discussions that we had in the fall about changes being made to, in personnel and, what people think is appropriate for the salary. We heard a lot of opinions.
Yep.
We'd like to give people a chance to come in and let us know how they feel about how our town government is changing and how we're going to pay for it. So,
Right. So this one's really important because this is really about what are we going to do from a budgetary standpoint versus any other people or other issues. This is purely from a budgetary standpoint
Right.
because the first selectman and ultimately us have to put a number into the budget for
Right.
that salary, and this is the time per the charter to talk about it. It's
Right.
permissible during the budgetary process, and I'm not sure everybody fully appreciates or understands that.
Right.
And again. The second piece and the second public hearing will address whether it should be during the budgetary process or not, amongst other things, right? So we've got a
That's
public
right.
hearing on the 23rd.
March 23rd,
Right.
we'll have a separate public hearing on we're calling it form of government.
Right.
But again, it's to follow up with residents' concerns about, the duties and functions and whether or not we need to make changes,
Right.
or whether people are happy with the way it is. We've heard a lot of different opinions, and we would like to give people another chance to say, how they feel it's going,
Right.
We can always amend, do the charter again. There's lots of things we can do.
certainly can.
Put together another charter commission.
I mean, that's certainly right.
That's right.
On the table is to convene a charter revision commission.
It's one of the options.
It's an option, if that's what,
It's an option, and then obviously, while we can't necessarily direct at this point the charter revision commission, what scope would we ask them to look at? What kind of guideposts would we put out there? Obviously, once it's convened, I think they can look at what they need to. But are we talking about town manager here? Are we just simply talking about
Right.
redefining or clarifying and updating the job description of
Right.
the first selectman? Are we
and
talking about
it's
something in
happened
between?
before. This
Yep.
is not
Yeah.
new.
Nope.
The town has done this before. I think, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we went through the same
Big study. and-
exercise, big study, and it has come back, once since then. So, I think personally, I think it's a good thing for people to focus on their form of government, because a lot of times people don't realize how it actually works
Right.
and how you can change it if you're.
Correct.
It's interesting to sit and think through, having watched some of the charter revisions having been put in place, but never really been involved, to actually watch the details of what goes
Right.
on and everything. And of course, now I've got a a seat a little bit closer to the front.
Front row seat, yeah.
But it's interesting, and again, it's having the discussion, much like the budget. You got to get involved. You want to get involved. You want to understand the moving pieces and how they all fit together. It is amazing to start to talk about this, and the system we currently have is there are checks and balances between the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance. They have, if I understand correctly, line item veto on the Board of Selectmen budget.
Correct.
But they do not have line item veto on the Board of Ed budget.
That's right.
They can only talk about the bottom number.
Correct.
So there are differences. I don't think they're necessarily bad. Those are the rules.
Right.
That's the game, the way we play. So it's interesting how all of that fits together, and the Board of Finance is a great check valve, if you will, from us running amok with our budget. So
Don't worry.
Right.
you'll pull me back.
Right.
We'll be good.
Thanks for having my back.
Everybody knows this is my favorite time of year, so I drive everybody on the Board of Selectmen nuts because I love budget season. So I wonder where I picked that up. So we're just about all out of time here, but
Great.
I thank you both for obviously coming out. We enjoy doing this every
Thank
month.
you,
We
absolutely.
appreciate
Fun.
SCTV having us. Obviously, you folks do a great job for this town of getting messages out and talking to the folks in the community, and I think that's great. So,
Right.
again, just if we could leave you with a parting thought, it's make sure that you come out and you give us your perspective on the budget, on the senior center, on the form of government, and on the first selectman salary. So you get 4 big cracks at us here,
Right.
which are arguably 4 of the most important things that we possibly get involved in. These are going to shape the town financially. And structurally for a long time, and aesthetically, depending on what we do with the senior center. So there's
Right.
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of things at stake here. But
It's a big deal, and they can reach out to us either when they see us walking
Yep.
around town,
Yep.
but also through the website.
Yep.
We all have
Right.
emails at the Board of Selectmen, and
Yep.
it's all part of being involved in the dialogue and everything. It's a good thing.
so thank you so much, and
Thank you.
we'll talk to you next time.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.